Commander Area Lawson stood on the bridge of the Elysium, her eyes fixed on the swirling depths of uncharted space ahead. The hum of the ship's engines was a comforting constant as the crew worked quietly at their stations. Yet beneath that calm exterior, something was different, something the crew couldn't quite explain. There was an energy in the air, an unspoken sense of discovery. The mission had been clear: map this unexplored sector of space, gather data, and return home. But as the ship approached a strange anomaly, a flicker of light appeared on their sensors, drawing them toward it with an inexplicable pull. At first, it had been chalked up to an oddity, another space-time distortion perhaps, but it soon became clear this was something far more extraordinary. "Commander Lawson," said Dr. Amara Holt, the ship's lead scientist, breaking the silence with urgency in her voice. She was staring at her monitor, eyes wide in disbelief. This isn't just any anomaly. It's an artifact. An ancient one, possibly millions of years old, and it's emitting a strange energy signature. I've never seen anything like it. Aria's brow furrowed as she walked over to the scientist's station. The screen displayed an intricately carved structure of alien origin, floating in the void like a monument forgotten by time itself. The object was massive, stretching several miles in length, and appeared to be composed of materials unknown to human science. "What exactly are we looking at, Amara?" Aria asked, her voice steady but tinged with curiosity. "Whatever it is, it's unlike anything we've encountered," Amara replied, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls. "I can't identify the material, and the energy readings. It's like it's alive. I'm picking up faint pulses, almost like it's communicating." The room grew quiet. The idea of an ancient artifact that could communicate was both thrilling and terrifying. But before Aria could ask any more questions, the lights aboard the Elysium flickered, and the entire ship shuddered. The crew scrambled, alarms blaring as they tried to regain control. "Commander, we've been locked onto," yelled Lieutenant Hart, his voice strained. "We're being pulled toward it, some kind of gravitational field." "Get us out of here, Hart," Aria barked, her voice cutting through the panic that was starting to rise. But no matter how hard the crew fought, the ship was dragged closer to the artifact, its immense gravitational pull defying the ship's systems. Then, something strange happened. The artifact's surface pulsed, and for a split second, Aria saw a flash of vivid colors swirl before her eyes. A voice. No, a feeling washed over her mind. "You are not ready." It wasn't a sound. It was a thought, transmitted directly into her mind, chilling her to the bone. Before she could react, the Elysium lurched violently, and the room was filled with blinding light. Everything went dark. The Elysium was adrift, floating in an unfamiliar region of space. The stars outside the viewports were wrong, too bright, too close, as if they were trapped in some distant corner of a universe that didn't belong to them. Aria Lawson stood before the ship's main display, her mind racing. The crew was in shock. No one could explain what had just happened. "We've been pulled into a different sector," Lieutenant Hart said, his voice tight with anxiety. "The navigation systems are offline. All the charts are wrong." Dr. Amara Holt, still standing near her workstation, was pale, her eyes wide with disbelief. "This isn't just a new sector, Commander. We've crossed into another galaxy. I can't pinpoint how far we've traveled. We shouldn't even be able to perceive this region of space. It's beyond our capabilities." The air in the room grew thick with confusion and fear. They'd discovered the artifact, yes, but none of them could have anticipated this. It was as though the relic had a will of its own, drawing them into the unknown. And then, when the flash of light came, it was like being torn from one reality and placed into another. Aria swallowed hard, trying to keep her composure. They were alone now, far beyond the reach of Earth, beyond any help. She had to remain calm. "Status report," she ordered. "We're functional for the most part," Lieutenant Hart replied, though his hands trembled on his console. "Shields are intact, but our communications array is scrambled. I can't get a signal out to Earth." Arya nodded grimly. "How long until we can re-establish contact?" "Not sure, Commander," Hart said, his voice a mix of frustration and fear. "It could take days, maybe weeks. We might never get through, depending on the extent of the damage." Just then, the ship shuddered again, harder this time. The crew braced themselves as the alarms blared once more. A warning flashed across the screen. "Hostile forces detected." Arya's heart skipped a beat. "What is that?" she demanded. Amara turned pale as she analyzed the readings. "They're coming from outside our galaxy. But it's not just one ship, Commander. It's an entire fleet, and it's closing in fast." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. The crew exchanged nervous glances, realizing what this meant. The artifact hadn't just led them into a different galaxy. It had attracted the attention of something much worse. Arya's mind raced. She had no time to lose. Hart, prep the ship for evasive maneuvers. "Amara, tell me everything you know about the alien ships, now." Amara began to sift through the data, her face hardening with each passing second. "The readings, they're not like anything we've seen before. These ships are massive, far more advanced than anything we've encountered. And their energy signatures, it's almost like they're alive." Before Arya could respond, a booming voice echoed through the ship's intercom system, deep and commanding, its tone full of ancient power. "Humans, your presence is a disturbance. You have trespassed into our domain. And for that, you will be eradicated." Arya's blood ran cold. This wasn't just any alien force. These were the gods, the beings that ruled over the galaxy and had crushed countless civilizations before them. The warning was clear. Humanity was an insignificant speck in the eyes of these powerful beings, and it was about to face their wrath. But Arya refused to back down. She clenched her fists, looking around at her crew. They had no choice but to fight. "We're not going to run," she declared, her voice resolute. "We're going to show them what humanity is capable of." The crew, still shaken but now emboldened by Arya's unyielding spirit, rallied together. The odds were impossible, but they were no strangers to defiance. With the artifact's power still pulsing in their minds, they had no choice but to face the storm ahead. The Elysium had no time to regroup. The alien fleet loomed closer, its ships massive and dark, their silhouettes like shadows against the cold, unfeeling stars. On the bridge, Arya Lawson gripped the command console with white-knuckled hands, her mind racing. The gods had made their move, and now humanity was caught in their sights. The voice of the emissary echoed once again, deep and resonant, vibrating through the hull of the ship. "You will kneel, human. Surrender the artifact and your lives will be spared. Resist, and you will be wiped from existence." The threat was clear, and the crew was shaken. But Arya's resolve was unwavering. "Hart, full speed ahead. We can't afford to let them catch us." Lieutenant Hart's hands flew over the controls. "Aye, Commander. But they're faster than we are. There's no escaping them." Dr. Amara Holt, who had been monitoring the readings, turned to Arya with wide eyes. "The energy signature of their ships, it's unlike anything we've encountered. These aren't just gods. They are the ones who shaped the galaxy. And now they've come for us." Arya's mind spun. The gods weren't just powerful, they were ancient. Every race in the galaxy, from the peaceful Gyrics to the warlike Vorniths, lived in awe of them. To challenge them was unheard of. Yet, here they were, the Elysium and its crew, standing as humanity's last hope. The weight of the moment pressed down on Arya, but she steeled herself. "Then we'll make them understand we're not as weak as they think." The sound of footsteps behind her made her turn. It was Captain Rook, a grizzled veteran and one of the few who had fought in humanity's early wars in space. His eyes were steely, hardened by experience. "Commander, we can't face them alone," he said, his voice low but urgent. "The gods are too powerful. We need allies, someone who knows how to fight back against them. Aria's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't considered it, but Rook was right. Humanity couldn't take on the gods with just their ship and a few brave souls. If they were going to have a chance, they needed help. Help from the very species the gods had subjugated for millennia. "I'm aware of that, Captain," Aria said. "But who would even dare stand against the gods?" Rook didn't hesitate. "The Shadari." Aria's eyes narrowed. The Shadari were a mysterious race, elusive and feared. Their ships were said to be shadows in the darkness of space, appearing and disappearing at will. They had once fought the gods but were driven into hiding after the gods' wrath nearly wiped them out. No one knew where they were, or even if they still existed. "We have no choice," Rook continued. "If the Shadari are still out there, we need to find them. They know the gods better than anyone. If anyone can help us, it's them." A plan began to form in Aria's mind. She had no illusions about the dangers. If they failed to find the Shadari, they would be easy prey for the gods. But the alternative was certain annihilation. They had to try. "We'll find them," Aria said, her voice hardening with resolve. "Prepare the ship for a jump to the coordinates I'm sending you. We're heading into uncharted space, and we don't stop until we've made contact with the Shadari." The crew nodded, their expressions a mix of fear and determination. They were already plunging into the unknown, but with humanity's survival hanging by a thread, there was no turning back. The Elysium cut through the vast void of uncharted space, its engines thrumming in the dark, propelling the crew toward an uncertain fate. Aria Lawson stood before the bridge's observation window, her hands clasped behind her back. Her mind raced, consumed by the choices that lay ahead. Every decision felt like a gamble, but humanity's survival depended on each one. "Commander," Dr. Amara Holt's voice broke through her thoughts. "I'm picking up a strange energy signature. It's unlike anything we've seen, but it matches the descriptions of Shadari technology." Aria's pulse quickened. The Shadari. The hope they'd pinned on the elusive race was beginning to take shape, but the sense of dread remained. If the Shadari did exist, if they were still out there, would they even be willing to help? Or had they disappeared into the annals of history, their memory just another casualty of the gods' dominance? "Set a course," Aria said, her voice steady, but her heart heavy with the burden of responsibility. "We'll reach these coordinates in 2 hours. Keep your eyes peeled, everyone. This could be a trap." The crew fell into motion. Aria could feel the weight of their eyes on her, eyes filled with both trust and fear. They were desperate. The gods' emissaries were relentless, their fleet looming on the outskirts of the galaxy, ever closer. Time was running out. As the ship neared the location, a faint ripple of energy reverberated through the ship's hull, like a pulse from some unseen source. The lights flickered briefly, and Aria's fingers tightened around the armrest of her command chair. "Reporting in, Commander," Lieutenant Hart's voice came through, steady but laced with concern. "We've entered a gravitational anomaly. It's not natural. It's like we're being pulled toward something." "Brace for impact," Aria ordered. "Prepare the crew for anything." The ship shuddered violently as they were drawn toward an unseen force. Then, just as quickly as it had started, the gravitational pull released, leaving them drifting in an eerily calm space. In front of them, a massive, shadowy structure loomed. A colossal ship, dark as the void, its surface rippling like liquid metal, shifting and changing shape as if it were alive. "Is this it?" Rook asked, his voice low with awe. "This is Shadari technology," Amara confirmed, her eyes wide. "I can feel it. The same energy signature from earlier. They're here." A soft hum filled the ship as a series of unknown symbols lit up along the hull of the massive structure. The Elysium was being hailed. Contact made, but no voice came through. Instead, a projection appeared on the bridge, an image of a tall, thin figure, draped in dark robes, their features obscured by a glowing mask. It was humanoid in shape, but something about it felt wrong, unnatural. Aria stood tall, meeting the figure's gaze. "We are the crew of the Elysium. We come seeking your help. The gods are coming, and if we don't stand together, we will be wiped out." The figure said nothing at first, its masked face unreadable. Then it spoke, its voice cold and distant, echoing as if it came from the depths of space itself. "You do not understand the stakes, human. The gods are not your only problem. Your actions have awoken forces that even they fear. You will need more than just your will to survive." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning, and a chill ran down Aria's spine. This was it. Humanity's gamble had just grown even more dangerous. The gods weren't the only threat now. Something worse was coming. Something the Shadari, these mysterious allies, were terrified of. Aria took a deep breath, steeling herself. "What do you want in return for your help?" The Shadari figure's eyes glowed faintly beneath the mask, and for a moment, Aria thought she saw something flicker behind them. A hint of emotion, perhaps fear. "What we want, human, is survival. We will fight alongside you. But know this, there is no turning back. Once you open the door to the unknown, there is no closing it. Are you prepared for what awaits?" Aria's eyes locked with the figures, her resolve hardening like steel. "We're prepared to do whatever it takes." The Elysium was now tethered to the Shadari ship, its powerful energy pulse integrating with their own. The crew felt the shift as the ship began to power up in ways they hadn't thought possible. The Shadari had agreed to join the fight, but with their help came the heavy realization that humanity was playing a dangerous game. The ancient forces stirring beyond the gods' influence were not to be underestimated. Aria stood on the bridge, watching the shifting patterns of the Shadari ship as it began to open up, revealing hidden layers of technology far beyond anything humanity had ever seen. The dark ship seemed to breathe, its surface pulsing with an almost organic rhythm, as though it were alive. "We're being given access to their weapons systems," Dr. Amara Holt said, her voice filled with awe. "This is incredible, but I don't understand. Why help us? Why now?" Before Aria could answer, the voice of the Shadari emissary crackled over the comms once again, his tone colder than before. "The gods are coming for everything. They've ruled the galaxies for millennia, and they believe they are above all others. You, human, have defied them, and that cannot go unpunished. But there is something worse than the gods, and you have made the mistake of awakening it." The words hit Aria like a physical blow. Worse than the gods. What could be worse than the beings that ruled the universe with unchecked power, destroying civilizations with a mere thought? Her eyes narrowed. She had learned enough about the gods to know their cruelty, their arrogance. But if there was something more terrifying, humanity was in far greater peril than she could have ever imagined. "What do you mean?" Aria asked, her voice steady despite the mounting fear. "What is this force you speak of?" There was a pause, and then the Shadari emissary spoke again, his voice low, reverberating through the bridge. "You are about to find out. What you've awakened is the Abyss, an ancient entity older than the gods themselves. It is a force of destruction, a primal power that has slumbered for eons. The gods fear it, and for good reason. Once it is awakened, nothing can stop it." A chill ran down Aria's spine. She had heard of the Abyss, but only in whispered legends, a being born from the very fabric of the universe, capable of consuming entire galaxies. The gods had sealed it away, but now, somehow, humanity's reckless actions had disturbed the ancient seals that kept it bound. "How do we stop it?" Aria demanded, her mind spinning. They couldn't fight the gods, and now they were facing something far more catastrophic. The Shadari figure's projection flickered, and the ambient hum of the ship grew louder, resonating with a power Aria had never felt before. "There is no stopping it once it's fully awakened. The only chance you have is to contain it, to keep it from spreading. But even that is no guarantee. The gods have their secrets, secrets that may offer a way to imprison the Abyss once again. If you can find those secrets, you might stand a chance. Aria's mind raced. The abyss wasn't just another threat. It was the kind of destruction that could obliterate entire universes. Worse, the gods had sealed it away, but their knowledge of how to contain it had long since vanished. Humanity was facing not just one enemy, but two, the gods, and the unstoppable force they had unknowingly released. How do we find these secrets? Aria asked, her voice thick with determination. Tell us what we need to do. The Shadari emissary's glowing eyes flickered, and a deep silence fell across the bridge. You must venture into the heart of the abyss, into the space where time and matter no longer follow the rules. There, you will find the truth. But be warned, human. Once you enter, there is no guarantee you will ever return. The abyss changes those who enter it, warps them into something unrecognizable. Few who have ventured there have ever returned the same. The weight of the decision hit Aria hard. Entering the abyss meant sacrificing everything they had, but if they didn't, the consequences would be far worse. She looked around at her crew, fear in their eyes, but also something else. Resolve. We don't have a choice, she said finally. We fight. For humanity. For the universe. For everything that has ever lived. The crew nodded in unison. They had no illusions about the dangers, but there was no turning back now. The Elysium drifted into the very heart of the abyss. The stars that once dotted the sky had vanished, swallowed by an impenetrable void. The ship was bathed in a strange, sickly glow that seemed to emanate from nowhere, like the space itself was alive, breathing in the blackness around them. Every sensor on board was going haywire. The fabric of reality here was wrong. We're crossing into uncharted space, Lieutenant Hart reported, his voice shaky. Time and gravity are fluctuating. It's like we're slipping between moments. Aria stood at the center of the bridge, her eyes fixed on the dark void outside. Despite the crew's fear, she held firm. The abyss was alive. This much was clear. The very nature of the universe bent and twisted in ways that defied logic, and there was no telling what awaited them. Stay focused, Aria said. We're not turning back now. Her voice was steady, but deep down, a flicker of uncertainty gnawed at her. They had crossed the point of no return. The Shadari had warned them of the dangers. The abyss was no mere force. It was a distortion of reality itself, an ancient being that consumed everything in its path. And yet within it was their only hope of survival, a chance to find the secrets to stop both the gods and the abyss itself. Commander, Dr. Amara Holt spoke, her voice strained as she stared at her monitors. I'm detecting something unnatural ahead. A structure. It's enormous. And it's moving. Aria's heart raced. A structure. In the abyss, there should have been nothing but endless darkness. The very thought of a massive living entity stirring here was a nightmare come to life. On screen, Aria commanded. The view in front of them flickered, and the crew gasped as a massive structure slowly came into view. It was a labyrinth of jagged, shifting spires, rising from the black void like the remains of some ancient, forgotten city. Its surface was made of a material Aria couldn't even begin to comprehend, shifting constantly, as though it were alive. And in the center of it all was a pulsing, glowing core, a chaotic swirl of energy, dark and blinding at once. That's it, Amara whispered, her eyes wide with fear and awe. That's the heart of the abyss. Aria could feel the pull of the place, like gravity itself was being distorted. The ship seemed to grow heavier, and the air grew thick with an oppressive energy. But there was no turning back now. They had to reach the core. If there were answers to be found, it would be there. Prepare to dock with the structure, Aria said, her voice resolute. Hart, bring us in slowly. Everyone else, brace for anything. The Elysium crept toward the heart of the abyss, its thrusters barely holding them steady against the crushing pull of the anomaly. The crew worked in tense silence, eyes flicking between monitors and the swirling energy outside. The closer they got, the more distorted reality seemed to become. Time appeared to twist, the seconds stretching longer, then collapsing in on themselves. The abyss was warping everything. Finally, with a final, shuddering lurch, the ship docked against the structure. A low, resonant hum reverberated through the hull, vibrating in Aria's bones. "This is it," Aria muttered. "We found it." She turned to the crew, her expression hardening. "This is the point of no return. We go in, and we don't come out until we have the answers. If this is our last mission, then we make it count." The crew nodded, their fear masked by their determination. They had come this far together. Now they had to face whatever horrors awaited them. With a hiss, the airlock doors opened, revealing a corridor leading deeper into the heart of the abyss, a corridor that seemed to stretch into infinity. The walls of the structure pulsed with dark, flickering energy, and the temperature dropped dramatically as they stepped inside. "We need to move quickly," Aria ordered. "Keep your eyes open. This place, this thing, is not just ancient. It's alive. And if we're going to find what we need, we have to get to the core." The crew moved forward, the strange energy pressing in on them from all sides, like invisible hands reaching out, trying to pull them deeper into the void. They kept their weapons close, but even with the advanced technology the Shadari had provided, they knew this place held dangers they couldn't anticipate. Then, as they ventured further into the depths of the structure, something stirred. A soft, melodic hum echoed from the shadows ahead, unnerving and hypnotic. The very air seemed to shiver with it. The closer they got to the core, the more intense the sound became, almost as if the abyss itself was awakening. "Stay alert," Aria warned. "Whatever comes next, we're facing it together." The ground shook violently beneath their feet. The dark structure around them rumbled as if it were coming to life, a deep growl reverberating through the walls, so powerful that it threatened to tear the Elysium apart from the inside. The crew halted, hearts pounding in their chests. Every instinct screamed at them to turn back, but they had come too far. "Keep moving," Aria shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. Her breath came in shallow bursts as she scanned the eerie, shifting shadows. The flickering lights overhead cast long, distorted shadows, and the walls pulsed with dark energy. Suddenly, a massive groan echoed through the structure, followed by a series of shrill, high-pitched wails, an unnatural sound that made every hair on the crew's body stand on end. They pressed forward, weapons drawn, eyes darting in all directions. "Commander, look!" Lieutenant Hart cried, pointing ahead. Ahead of them, a shimmering figure emerged from the shadows, a being draped in flowing, ethereal robes, its features indistinct, as though it was made of the very darkness surrounding them. Its presence was suffocating, a palpable force that seemed to distort reality. The creature glided toward them, and though it had no visible mouth, its voice echoed in their minds. "You should not have come, humans." Aria's grip tightened on her weapon, her heart racing. "Who are you?" she demanded. The figure's form flickered like a dying star. "I am the keeper of the abyss," it intoned. "I am the guardian of this place, and your arrival has awakened something that cannot be undone. The abyss is not a place for mortals, not a place for you to meddle with." Amara stepped forward, her face pale, eyes wide. "You're telling us this thing, this abyss, is alive. It's sentient." The keeper's form shimmered, and its voice took on a more chilling tone. "The abyss is not merely alive. It is consciousness, an ancient will that predates all that you know. It feeds on the fabric of existence itself. And now, because of your actions, it is awake. The gods fear it, but even they cannot prevent its spread. Once it awakens fully, everything will be consumed. Your universe, your gods, your very existence." The crew stood frozen, the weight of the revelation sinking in like a stone. Humanity's gamble had brought them here, to the very heart of the abyss, and now they were facing something far worse than they had ever imagined. Not only were they trying to stop the gods, but they had inadvertently unleashed an even greater threat, a force that had no place in their reality. Arya took a deep breath, her mind racing for answers. "Then what do we do?" she asked, her voice steady, despite the terror tightening in her chest. "How can we stop it? How can we contain it?" The Keeper's eyes, or what passed for them, glowed faintly as it regarded her. "You cannot stop the abyss, not by your own power, nor the power of your gods. But there is a way to bind it, to contain it before it consumes all. The knowledge you seek is buried within this structure. The truth lies deep within the core, where the first seal was placed. But be warned, the path to the core is not a simple one. Only those who can face the abyss itself will survive." A cold shiver ran down Arya's spine. "What do you mean by face the abyss?" The Keeper's form flickered once more, and its voice grew more haunting. "The abyss is not merely an entity. It is a test, a trial for those who dare to face it. It will show you your deepest fears, your darkest desires, and you will either be consumed by them or emerge stronger. But few have emerged. The abyss does not forgive." The crew exchanged uncertain glances. Arya could feel the weight of the Keeper's words, the realization sinking in that they were not just fighting for survival. They were about to face an unimaginable trial. The core was the key to stopping the abyss, but the journey there would demand more from them than they were prepared to give. "We have to do it," Arya said, her voice resolute. "We have no choice. For humanity, for everything." With a final, chilling laugh, the Keeper spoke once more. "Then go, if you dare. But remember, the abyss does not care who you are. It will break you." The Keeper's figure began to fade, dissipating like mist, leaving nothing but the oppressive silence in its wake. The crew stood at the threshold of the core, the path ahead fraught with dangers they couldn't fully comprehend. "Let's move," Arya commanded, her voice firm. "We face whatever comes next, together." As they continued deeper into the heart of the abyss, the air grew colder, the darkness denser. The walls twisted and contorted, creating endless labyrinths of shifting corridors that seemed to loop back on themselves. With every step, the feeling of being watched intensified. Something was waiting for them in the depths of the abyss. The whispers grew louder, filling their minds with a maddening cacophony. Each voice was distorted, overlapping with the next, as though they were being pulled into an ocean of thought, drowning in the chorus of forgotten souls. It was a presence more terrible than anything Arya had ever encountered. She gritted her teeth, fighting the urge to cover her ears, but the voices were inside her head, impossible to escape. "Focus," she snapped at the crew. "Don't let it get to you. We're almost there." But her words were swallowed by the oppressive air of the abyss. The deeper they moved into the labyrinthine corridors, the more the structure seemed to shift around them. Hallways closed behind them, doors materialized where none had been before, and the walls pulsed, as though the abyss itself was alive, breathing in sync with them. Lieutenant Hart staggered, his hand pressed to his head, as if he were being torn apart from the inside. I can't concentrate," he muttered. "It's too much. Keep moving," Arya ordered, though her own mind was starting to fracture under the weight of the voices. She felt the cold grip of fear trying to close around her heart, but she refused to let it take hold. They were close. The core had to be close. Suddenly, the walls shifted again, and a massive chamber appeared before them. The walls were lined with strange, alien glyphs, symbols that seemed to move and change as if they were alive. In the center of the room stood a towering, jagged spire, blacker than the surrounding void, its surface slick with a dark, oily substance. The spire pulsed with an eerie light, a sickly green glow that seemed to infect the very air around it. "This is it," Amara whispered, her eyes wide with fear and awe. "The core." The crew moved forward cautiously, their weapons drawn, but the moment they stepped into the room, the atmosphere thickened. The air became suffocating, heavy with a palpable sense of dread. The voices in their heads grew louder, and now they could hear something else. A soft, low growl coming from deep within the spire itself. "We're not alone," Rook muttered, his voice tense. Before anyone could react, a massive shape began to emerge from the spire, rising from the dark, liquid-like substance that seemed to pour out from it. The creature was an amalgamation of shifting, shadowy forms, its body a swirling mass of darkness, tendrils, and eyes that glowed with a terrifying intensity. It was monstrous, a nightmare given form. Its very presence seemed to distort the room around them, bending light and sound until nothing felt real. The creature's voice boomed inside their heads, a terrifying, guttural growl that shook their very souls. "Foolish mortals," it sneered, its voice echoing like 1,000 screams. "You think you can control the abyss? You think you can contain me?" Aria's heart pounded as the creature's eyes fixed on them, each one a swirling abyss of madness. She could feel it probing her mind, searching for weakness, for fear. "We don't want to control you," she said, her voice strained but determined. "We want to stop you." The creature laughed, the sound ripping through the chamber like a blade. "You cannot stop what has always been. You cannot escape the abyss. It is the end of all things. It will consume you all, as it has consumed everything before you." Aria knew they were running out of time. The voices in her head, the creature's mocking tone, it was all part of the abyss's test. The Keeper had warned them, but now they were here, standing at the heart of it, facing the greatest trial of their lives. "We don't have to fight you," Aria said, her mind racing. She reached into her memory, recalling what the Shadari had said about the abyss, that it wasn't just a force of destruction, but a test. She wasn't sure what the test was, but they had to survive it. "We can contain you. We just need to find the right way." The creature hissed, its many eyes narrowing as it moved toward them, its form shifting with every step. "You dare to bargain with me? The abyss cannot be contained by your will, human. It is not just a force of nature. It is the end of all things. You will see that soon enough." The creature lunged at them, its tendrils snaking out to crush them all. But just as it did, the glowing core at the center of the spire flared brightly, filling the room with a blinding light. The air hummed with energy, a pulse so strong that it knocked the creature back. Aria's mind clicked. This was the key. The core wasn't just the heart of the abyss. It was a prison. It had to be. And the power to seal the abyss away was in the very energy the creature was trying to destroy. "Amara, the core, it's the seal. We have to activate it," Aria shouted. Amara hesitated, but then nodded, sprinting toward the core. The rest of the crew took defensive positions, keeping the creature at bay as best they could. The abyss roared, its form writhing, trying to break free. But the core pulsed again, and this time, the light from it intensified, forming intricate patterns around the room. "Now," Aria shouted. Amara reached out to touch the core, and in an instant, the entire room was filled with a blinding flash of light. The creature screeched, its form disintegrating as the energy of the core surged. The walls of the chamber cracked, and the oppressive presence of the abyss began to dissipate. But just as the creature's form shattered, a final, thunderous voice echoed in their minds. "You have not won, human. The abyss is eternal. It will return."